Picks of the Week.
Welcome back to Inside the Pylon, a Midwest college football podcast, joined as always by Clinton Boring. My name is Ryan Sadkowiak. It is Picks of the Week. I wanted to get the sound in there to start so I didn't forget. Again, Clinton, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, man. It's Thursday night, favorite show of the week, although I do really like the recap shows on Sundays. Those are pretty fun. We get some good emotion in there. But great week upcoming. We finally... we're not picking 19 games this week. We're picking 10. As the Big Ten play has officially started, I'm looking forward to the matchups. And, of course, I know it's not Big Ten, but Georgia-Bama certainly hangs over everything, is probably the most monster matchup of the week. But tomorrow's Friday, and we get free pizza tomorrow, so I'm pretty stoked for that. Mr. Sadkowiak, how are you this evening?
Well, I would very much like to stop having emotions involved in our recap show because – so far, it's been only me having emotion, and you're just sitting there talking about Ohio State beating another school from the Mary Beth Elliott Sisters of the Blind and Deaf University subsystem. So not really a whole lot for you to talk about here these last couple of weeks. I'm good. I officially do not have COVID. I took a test today because I've been manifesting symptoms all week, and I thought I was dying last night. And I was sitting down here on the couch. I'm like, Jesus, I am so hot right now. And then I took my temperature. I was 98.7. I'm like, God damn, I am an idiot. So I'm like, you know what? We got a wedding this weekend.
Well, you know what? They always say if you think it and believe it long enough, it'll happen. So.
I am going to speak this into existence.
God damn it, I want COVID.
No, we have a wedding this weekend, and I think that if it's all my coworkers, and I think if I brought COVID to a work wedding and shut the clinic down next week, I would probably get in trouble.
You lose your job. You're
so
fired.
I'm like, you know what? We're just going to take a test, and it's kind of a shit or get off the pot. You either have it or you don't. So that's good. Yeah, I'm just ready for the weekend, I guess. It'll be a fun night tomorrow. We got a couple good games on there. A little bit of a bummer. The Thursday night game's not so good this week. I don't really care about Army or Temple.
No, nor is the NFL game. It's the Cowboys at the Giants. Nobody wants to watch the Giants play.
Listen. If you gamble
unless
on
Ryan
it,
has bets on it,
it's
he'll watch
exciting.
It.
Not that it's exciting. I mean, you know what I mean. Speaking of bets, we are doing some picks this week. We have some ranked matchups to discuss in Big Ten play. We'll throw a bonus Georgia-Alabama pick at the end just because that's going to be a slobber knocker, as the kids say, back in 1942.
Has a big effect on the Big Ten.
Depending
on how that goes.
Well,
not a direct effect, but
it could
have an effect late season. You know what
maybe.
I mean? Like,
depends. I mean, maybe not Bama as much, but Georgia's definitely got the type of schedule where you're sitting there at the end of the year and it's like, oh, well, they already lost to Bama and now they lost to Texas. And if they lose a third game, are they going to be out?
And they lost to Tennessee. I'm just kidding.
I mean, Tennessee looks pretty good. Live on YouTube again this evening. You can find us there, Twitter and Instagram at ITPCFB. Make sure you are following us on the socials and subscribe to that YouTube channel. We're doing a Clinton-inspired giveaway this week on the Twitter account. So find us on Twitter to get in on that. We got a $50 Buffalo Wild Wings gift card, the Columbus Classic Buffalo Wild Wings, my former player.
You have to retweet and follow us. Spread it to your friends like Ryan was going to spread COVID to his coworkers this weekend. Mm-hmm. Help us follow to help us grow the show. Because that's what we're all about. And that's what this was designed to do. Maybe I swung a little high on the $50 to start. As my wife said, why did you choose $50 and not $25? And I was like, I don't know, honey. I was feeling inspirational. I thought it might make more people like us. As I learned as a young man, you can't buy your friends. People just have to like you.
You see, spreading COVID to your coworkers, bad. Spreading the chance to win a $50 Buffalo Wild Wings gift card to your friends. Good.
Yes.
Always. Yes. And as always, if you'd prefer to listen to our nonsense in the morning in your podcast feed, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your shows. We're at Inside the Pylon, a Midwest college football podcast there. Make sure you are following on your preferred platform so you can get notified as soon as these episodes drop. And while you are there, if you feel so inclined to drop a star review and a rating, we would appreciate that. I don't know if you can actually do a rating on Spotify. I haven't figured that one out yet, but I know you can on Apple.
You can do a rating. Yeah. You have to listen to at least 30 seconds
We can do a star rating. Can you rate
Star
it?
rating, okay.
Yeah, you can
That
do
I don't know. I thought you were meaning, could you do a star review?
No, you can definitely do a star rating. We have 5 stars on Spotify. I checked.
12 of them, 12 or 13,
Yeah.
5 stars. We need a little more love on Apple, so give us that rating, folks.
Mm-hmm. This evening, we will start with the big one, which I did not have on my bingo card in the preseason as this being the big one of the Big Ten Week 5. Saturday night, an unofficial whiteout game, 7:30 on NBC. Illinois traveling to Happy Valley for their second consecutive ranked matchup this season. Penn State, a heavy favorite in this one, currently sitting at 19.5 points. Clinton, does that line surprise you?
It does to an extent. I feel like, again, me not knowing that much about betting, and I don't know where the odds currently stand if you're picking Illinois versus picking Penn State, but that seems like a pretty big spread to me for a team who just walked into Lincoln, Nebraska and pulled a nice upset last Friday and looked pretty damn stout doing it. Penn State, yes, has the win over West Virginia, but they also have the struggle against BG, and then, of course, they have the mollywhopping of Kent State last week, who has been mollywhopped by everyone so far.
Go
and
Falcons.
Might get mollywhopped by everyone in the MAC. But, yeah, 19 seems a little big. Even whether it was white out, noon, doesn't matter at the time. That seems like a pretty big spread to me. What about your thoughts on Ryan? You think it's a big one?
I was thinking a lot about this like an hour ago. It randomly popped into my head. How would we feel about this game if Illinois lost to Kansas? Or let's say overtime goes slightly differently last weekend and they lose to Nebraska. They're coming into this game 3-1 with wins against, what was it, Eastern Illinois, Central Michigan, and a
Kansas.
Seemingly overrated Kansas team. How would we be thinking about Illinois then? Would we be thinking like, it's a 3-1 team, but they haven't really beaten anyone? I guess I could kind of see that based on what we thought on the preseason.
I think if the loss was to Nebraska in the overtime scenario, or is it just as close of a game, not a blowout, I think I'd feel similar. If the loss was, if you lost to Kansas, but you beat Nebraska, that would kind of negate my feeling. Mm-hmm. Let's say you're 2-2. Let's say you've lost to Kansas and Nebraska, then I certainly would feel a little better about this large of a spread. But maybe it's just recency bias and watching Luke Altmaier up close and how much ice in the veins he had against Nebraska last week. But he's a veteran guy. I really don't know how much. And it is the whiteout. I get it. Mm-hmm. It's an intimidating environment. But some dudes, they just have it. And Lincoln was rocking pretty loud last week, and I'm sure it is not louder than Penn State, but it was a sold-out game.
Don't ask that to Brett Bielema.
It was a sold-out game. Crowd was popping. You know what's going to happen tomorrow night, or Saturday night. Penn State fans are going to be drinking all day long, and they're going to be ready to party. But I don't know. I think I have a little more faith in Altmaier, and maybe I'm picking an upset here. Who knows when we get to that point?
So I guess my thought on this is we kind of touched on this a little bit with our tiers episode. We both were not. You were a little higher on Illinois preseason than I was, but it's still not particularly high. And I wonder if, I don't know how much the first 4 weeks of the season are factoring into some of these Vegas power rankings compared to the large data set of last year. And I wonder if these particular Vegas power rankings are not really high on Nebraska. And well, obviously they're not high on Illinois, but I wonder if these power rankings just don't view that as a particularly impressive win. Because I think and this gets into this weird conversation about who's good, who's not good, who's getting propped up because there's like the conversation around Texas for the longest time, right? They're one of the most talented teams in the country, but they play like ass every weekend and they finish 7-5. So are they actually that good of a team? Probably not. Hey, obviously that's turned the corner the last 2 years, but it's just this weird spot to be in where I think our discourse kind of revolves around the perception of how good a team is. So we see Illinois beat a top 22, whatever they were last weekend, Nebraska team on the road on a Friday night, and we say, damn, that was a good win. And it was a good win. There's no, that's going to, I think that win is going to stand the test of time as the season goes along. But early in the season, we have to think about how Nebraska is probably viewed in some of these rankings that don't necessarily care what your resume is. They just care about the materials on hand. They care about what's under the hood, because that's what these projections are. And that's even when Texas was bad all those years, when you look at something like Bill Connolly's SP Plus, they'd always be ranked in the top 13 to 15, despite being a 7-5 team, just because of the talent on hand. So with this, if we're looking at talent on hand, unquestionably Penn State is the far more talented team in this game. I don't think maybe some people would try to argue it, but I don't want to waste oxygen doing that. So I think there's still a lot of that's going into it. You factor in the home field giving you another 3 points. And the other side of this too is I think this opened at 17.5. And I thought that was kind of high, and it's gotten bet up. Mm-hmm. So clearly there's some money coming in on Penn State at that number. So it's one of those games that when I saw it come out, my initial thought was, oh my God, there's no way that Penn State is going to cover that. And I think even you tweeted something out about it, and a lot of Penn State fans were, I think they'll win. I just don't know if they'll cover that number. It's a big number. Ohio State's 23.5 over Michigan State this weekend. This number is almost that. That's insane. Yeah. For a team that is currently top 20 in the country. That being said, I think I'm going to go with Penn State on this one. I have questions about whether or not Illinois is going to be able to run enough, because I think the path for Illinois in this game is trying to control clock and keep the ball out of Penn State's hands. That seems to be the go-to recipe when we're talking about a team with a talent disadvantage, right? Is try to limit possessions. The issue is, even against Nebraska last week, they were fine running the ball. They just have not been particularly adept in their last 3 games. So 2.3 yards per carry against Kansas, 4.7 against Central Michigan. That's not great against a MAC team. And I would know, as the podcast expert on teams that look like garbage against MAC teams, that's my forte. And then only 4.3 yards per carry against Nebraska. So this is a salty Penn State defense. I don't know that, they had success last week relying on Luke Altmaier a little bit more. I don't know that that's a winning formula against this Penn State pass rush. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of one of those things that, we don't really know a ton about Penn State's offense because, again, you mentioned it, they haven't been tested. Has their toughest game this year been Bowling Green? Mm-hmm. Is that a hot take? I think Bowling Green might be better than West Virginia.
I think in a way you could argue that. Maybe not by end of the season, but maybe where it stands right now.
So, I don't take anything from the Kent State game because Kent State's bad. So I don't know that we have a good idea on what the true capacity for this Penn State offense is yet. And we might find out in this game, hey, Illinois' defense is really good and they slow this Penn State attack down and make it a close game. But just kind of based on the information available, and I guess we're going to call this a gut hunch, I think Penn State gets ahead early and it allows Abdul Carter and Denai Dennis Sutton to just kind of pin their ears back. And I think as the game goes along, they tee off on Luke Altmaier and it just kind of becomes a battle of attrition there. So give me Penn State minus the points. I don't feel great about it. I could see a world where Illinois easily covers. I could see a world where this is easily a game late into the fourth quarter. That being said, I could also see Illinois backdoor covering this because they're down by, 24 points with 5 minutes left in the fourth and they get a garbage time touchdown. So that's what I'm going with, Clinton, here. What are you feeling on this game?
Well, to quick pivot off your pass rush comment, we talked about that last week, right? With Nebraska. And we didn't think.
Yeah, but I think Penn State's
it's a different level of talent. It's a different level of talent, yes. But they already achieved 1 week of success against a good pass rush, and maybe they overachieved this week to do enough. So some of my pieces I was looking at, Altmaier's passing for over 200 yards a game. He hasn't thrown a pick yet, and he's hitting 71% on his throws. Now, when a raucous environment is sitting around you the entire time, that may change some of that. Then the other quarterback here. In 2023, Drew Aller averaged just 6.8 yards per throw, and the team averaged 11.36 yards per completion. Penn State is number 2 in the country in 2024 with 17.3 yards per completion this season. That is massive. Holy cow. That shows you how much more explosive this team is. We might be getting more of the James Franklin common quote here, chuck it deep. And they're explosive, man. They are explosive. Can this be more like the Illinois DB room of 2022? Guys, maybe we don't know the full name just of yet, like a Witherspoon and a Brown. But can they settle that down and limit some of the explosive plays? The problem is, if you want to stack the box to try to stop their running game, then Aller's just going to throw it over the top. And if you don't want to load the box to stop the run game, then Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton are probably just going to punch it down your face the entire game. And you commented on the pass rush. I just had noted how often will each pass rush get to the opposing quarterback. We think of the other side on the offensive line of Penn State. And when we talked about Zach and Matt, we felt like that might be a potential weakness for this team. Now you're 4 games in, and they've developed some. But let's see how much Illinois' pass rush gets after Penn State in this game. I'm going to take the plus 19 with Illinois in this game.
Wow, we disagree. I think
Penn State wins, but plus 19 Illinois.
I think the other part of this, too, that I am just now considering is, we'll talk about this with Nebraska in a little bit, but they have not been the best at running the ball this year. So with that, it maybe allows you to be a little bit more, I don't know, biased towards trying to take away the passing game and just dare them to run at you. I don't think you can do that in this game. I think if you try to commit too heavily one way or the other, it's going to burn you.
Yeah.
So a lot of ways for Penn State. Yes.
Certainly Big Ten game of the week. Absolutely.
Yes. Speaking of intriguing, I am super fired up, Clinton, about this game tomorrow night. We have Washington, their first long Big Ten road trip. Welcome to the conference, gentlemen. We're sending you to Piscataway, New Jersey for a Friday night game. A nice little body clock, 5 Pacific game for you. We have 8 p.m. on Fox tomorrow, Washington at Rutgers. Rutgers, a 2-point favorite in this one. Surprising, I think, maybe kind of a little bit. Soliciting some words from our pal Roman Tomashaw from Locked On Huskies. This is going to be a fun one. If the Huskies can contain Kyle Monangai, I like their odds. Clinton, I am kind of worried about the Rutgers run game in this one.
Are you?
Yes. So
why?
Virginia Tech shut them down last week.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone and their brother has run on Virginia Tech this season. They gave up 3.8 yards per carry against Vandy. Fair. 5.7 yards per carry to Marshall. 6.2 yards per carry to Old Dominion. They gave up 250 yards on the ground to Old Dominion. They held Kyle Monangai to under 4 yards per carry last week. That is bad. I dug into that one a little bit. I'm not feeling particularly optimistic about the Rutgers rushing attack in this one. In this particular game, the thing that concerns me for Washington is kind of that body clock, right? We're talking about a 5 p.m. Pacific game on a Friday night. That's not a natural time to be jacked up and amped for a football game. But I think I like their athletes in space a little bit more than Rutgers. I think I'm not the biggest Will Rogers fan, but I think I like him a fair amount more than Ethan Kaliak-Manis in this game. And I still don't know that I trust Kaliak-Manis if Washington gets out to an early lead and Rutgers has to pass their way back into this one. So I'm taking the upset here, Clinton. We're going, give me Washington plus the 2.5. 2 points, not 2.5. Whatever.
So, as you alluded to, matchup to watch. You already mentioned one piece, Monangai. Jonah Coleman. Obviously, I've been following Coleman pretty closely because he has mentioned before he's on my fantasy team. He's a great running back. I think we listed the top 5 rushers in the Big Ten, or I did on Twitter, and Coleman and Monangai are both in there. Washington's offense has been pretty steady. Will Rogers, Jonah Coleman, wide receiver trio. I'm blanking on the tight end's name, but he had a pretty good start to the season. I think if both run games were to be impacted, and we talked about this last week at Iowa and Minnesota, if somebody stifled the other team's running game, who do you have more confidence in to pass? I think at this point you'd have to go Will Rogers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also wonder if La Tech's success last week was them game planning heavily to stop Monangai and making that their point. Now, obviously, maybe Washington can do that again. Maybe Rutgers schemes something differently. We also talked about how kind of sloppy Rutgers was in that game and probably should have put it away differently. What gives me confidence that they're going to be able to run the ball is that Rutgers' entire offensive line are the highest graded offensive linemen at every position in college football. Holland Pierce, 90.6. Brian Felter, 86.6. Gus Zelenskas, 89.1. Oh my gosh. Kawabena Asamoah, 87.7.
Oh boy.
Tyler Needham, 90.4. They are grading out really well as an offensive line. So maybe last week's an off week, right? Everybody has a little off week. I think I'm going to trust the Rutgers defense more in this game to be able to slow down the Washington offense. And I trust Greg Schiano a little more at this point than Jed Fish. So give me Rutgers -2.
Oh my goodness.
I told you we were going to be different when it came to Big Ten play. You didn't believe me.
Oh my goodness. I do think that this Rutgers defense is probably the best one that Washington has faced so far. So I'm not the most confident in my pick, but give me the better quarterback in this game.
I agree. I absolutely agree that Rodgers is the better quarterback. I think if the defense can force something early and then get some short field, I feel like I'm saying this every week, but get some short field, Calais McManus doesn't have to work as hard. And I guess if it comes down to field goals, I don't know much about Washington's, but I'm not very confident in Rutgers' field goal kicker because he missed 2 last week. Now, also don't set him up for 50-yard bombs because you should never trust college kickers, and that might go better for you. But, yeah, Rutgers -2 for me.
Oh, my goodness. We're disagreeing all over the place. Back to Saturday, 12 o'clock on Fox. We have Michigan in a classic letdown spot, a 10-point favorite hosting the Golden Gophers. Clinton, the good news for Minnesota is they are playing an offense that cannot throw the ball. The bad news for Minnesota, Clinton, is they just lost to an offense that could not throw the ball. So this is a nice little spot for Michigan here. Sharon Moore knows that he can go in with the we're not going to pass for anything game plan here and have a little bit of success. I think it was a Solid Verbal I was listening to, and they were talking about Darius Taylor and how this Michigan defense might be gettable because Woody Marks went for 100 yards last week. But that was pretty much the entire rushing output for USC in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And not on top of that, Miller Moss threw 51 times. And I think USC spreads the field just a tiny bit more than Minnesota does. So that might create some more favorable running lanes. So a week after getting shut down by Iowa, I'm not particularly confident that Darius Taylor is going to get things going against this Michigan defense that knows they're probably not going to be tested as much through the air as they were last week. I do not feel great about this Michigan offense. I don't think the path that they are on is sustainable, but I don't think it particularly matters this week. I think I did not rate the over-unders. I think it was like 38.5. I honestly would take the under in this one, but give me Michigan minus the points. I'm not sure how much Minnesota is able to score in this game.
You had it 9.5, right?
I have it at 10 here.
Oh, wow. Okay. -10. My thoughts. Did Michigan figure something out on offense last week? Can they continue to ride the running game and have no passing game against a pretty solid Gophers D? We've not been the only ones that noted that. The Solid Verbals noted that, and the guys we follow from Minnesota on Twitter have noted that being Ryan Burns, guys like that. The Gophers absolutely have to get Darius Taylor going in this game. But you're now facing a stout Michigan defensive line that started to look like they got their groove back last week against USC. Maybe Minnesota has the better offensive line. Maybe USC does. We'll find that out as the season goes. You already brought up Woody Marks went for 100 yards. But I noted the exact same thing. USC has the better passing game, which helps balance the offense out and makes Michigan respect it more. Finally, the Gophers have to limit explosive plays to have a shot. Michigan won last week purely because of 3 big plays that you noted in the run game, because they sure as hell didn't have any in the pass game. Remember, folks, Michigan had 9 yards of total offense in the entire second half until that final drive. Minnesota's got a good defense. Do they go in and they absolutely sell out to stop this run and make Orgy beat them in the air? That seems like a move PJ Fleck might need to make, because I'm hearing some rumors PJ Fleck's tushy might be getting a little hot. And so he kind of needs to swing for the fence now. And if he pulls this upset in Ann Arbor, that seat's going to cool down a little bit, barring Michigan just doesn't fall off the face of the planet. But I also wonder, too, is Michigan going to come off that USC win with a false positive about themselves? Going to start riding themselves too much here. Oh, we're back, baby. We can do this. You're not the same team as the past 3 years. You do not have J.J. McCarthy to save you. That being said, give me Minnesota plus 10.
Oh, my gosh. I feel like you're just doing this to be a contrarian.
No, I'm not. I literally have it written down right here.
Oh, my goodness.
I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. So if you're going to give me Minnesota 10 points. Also, it's the same thing Dan said today on Solid Verbal. What has Michigan done to prove to you that they've earned that plus 10?
What has Minnesota done to prove that they can score on Michigan? Clinton, you give me a touchdown and 2 field goals, and this spread's getting covered, my friend.
I don't know if
I think Minnesota's
I think
scoring.
Minnesota's good. I do. I think there's going to be something. So if I'm giving them 10, Michigan's got to win by 11. I think you're looking at something like 20-13 final score.
They're not scoring 13 points.
Arkansas State scored more points than Minnesota. That's
Arkansas
projection
State,
would be.
Though. That's all right. They were farting around the second half. 3 turnover Davis Warren out there. Alex Orgy's not even going to throw 3 passes in this game.
I don't know. I'm taking Minnesota plus the points. We're gonna have a catch up week here. A Heinz catch up week chance for Ryan. He's either gonna catch me or I'm gonna start burying him here.
I'm gonna be SOL on the picks the rest of the season. Also at 12 o'clock on Big Ten Network, we have a September Maryland taking on Indiana in Bloomington. 7-point favorite for Indiana as they look to move to 5-0 for the first time since I don't even know when. Clinton, I probably should have looked that up before the show, but that's on me. I'll let you cook on this one because I know you're kind of I don't think you're piloting the IU bandwagon, but you're certainly a card-carrying member, so I'll let you kind of start us off on this one here.
Yeah, I just purchased my Crimson Card bucks recently. So my biggest thing to start on the IU defensive side is, do they have an answer for the Edwards to Ty Felton connection? I don't even know if you need to have an answer, right? Like you just need to have something to slow it down. It's not always about stopping it, but can you slow it down enough? Because those two are on a tear. The Maryland, their passing game's been pretty great. Their ground attack's been good enough. In the turnover margin, though, they're one of the nation's best. They have 10 turnovers forced to only 1 given. That's pretty good.
Decent.
Now, Maryland's coming to Indiana, so it's not like you're getting the home field advantage there. Rourke's going to have the crowd behind him. The other caveat to that is IU has not faced any adversity yet.
None.
They have not trailed, to my knowledge, in a game. So how do they respond if Maryland gets up by more than 1 score? I think 1 score is always kind of comfortable for people, right? 3-7, even 10.
Yeah.
But if you get 14 points or more and you're down, how do you respond? Rourke is connecting on just about everything. Indiana has rushed for 222 yards or more against everyone except UCLA. And the pass rush for Indiana has been fantastic. They have 12 sacks on the season. Again, it helps given who you've played. Maryland lost to Michigan State because it couldn't run the ball, and they couldn't stop the Spartan passing game enough. What does Indiana do really well? They kind of have done everything well on offense thus far, but Rourke's been on fire throwing the ball. What does Indiana do really good on defense? Tackle. They tackle well. That's a pretty good way to slow down a run game and make you one-dimensional. I like the Hoosiers here. Indiana, -7.
Oh, my goodness. Clinton, look at you go. I have absolutely no idea what is going to happen in this game. Just not even an earthly clue. I think that the best of Indiana this year looks like a pretty freaking good team, and I think it's pretty criminal that they're not ranked. Considering some of
If they win this game and are not ranked, there's a vendetta against them.
That's bullshit. Ridiculous. That's ridiculous. The issue I have with Indiana is they not only have they not faced adversity, they just really haven't faced anyone with a pulse. Like your best win is UCLA, and UCLA at least looked competent somewhat for a half last weekend, but that's not a good football team. So I don't know what is, like you kind of said, what's going to happen when somebody actually has the capacity to hit back at them for the first time in 5 games.
And maybe hit with them for 4 quarters, not just 2, but 4.
Yeah. Like if we're talking about the best unit that Indiana will have faced this season, it's got to be Maryland's passing attack, right?
100%.
So
you might even argue Maryland's run game. What have the other teams offered in a run game?
Yeah. With Maryland, I mean, the tough loss to Michigan State, absolutely. That's not exactly promising in this game, not because I don't think Michigan State's particularly great this year. Not that I also think Virginia's particularly great, but they've at least kind of faced someone who can sort of hit back a little bit. I think Indiana probably wins this game, but I think it's going to be a shootout, and in a shootout, I'm going to take Maryland +7. I think it'll probably be close. Okay. I mean, that being said, you could tell me any possible outcome in this game and it would not surprise me. Like I said, I have no earthly clue what's going to happen here.
The more question for this week between you and I is, are we going to pick a game that's the same?
I know
we are at odds. We are at odds.
Illini cast in the chat. Good evening, gentlemen. Illinois going to shock the world Saturday night.
Hell yeah, Illini cast.
I love this.
Are you a first-time listener to us, or at least first-time joining us live?
Love that.
Can you answer that for us? We love you joining us. We appreciate it.
Nothing. Listen, I'm not a Penn State hater, but that would be a cool outcome.
Dude, if Illinois walks into Happy Valley and shocks, I would say most of the college football world and beats them, damn, it's going to be rocking in Champaign.
Man. I wrote it in the show descriptor. I think that's one outcome that would absolutely shock or kind of shake up the playoff discussion.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Now you're talking like, I think we've been talking about Penn State as, well, they're going to beat everyone, maybe lose to Ohio State 11-1, maybe 10-2 at worst. And now you're looking at them like, well, we're assuming that 10-2 is, or they're going to lose to Ohio State. And if they lose that game, you're 10-2, and do they lose again? So then, yeah, man, that'd be exciting. We can hope. Turn my page. We also have at 12 o'clock, moving on to the next one here on Peacock. We have a Peacock heavy slate. Stop it. We have a Peacock.
I'm doing that every time we get a cock game.
I need to find a sound for that. That'd be funny. We have Nebraska coming off the aforementioned loss to Illinois last week, -10 at Purdue, who, no lie, Clinton, has allowed 700 yards on the ground the last 2 weeks.
That's rough, man.
That is legitimate math that I did today because I wanted to not overshoot that.
Do I need to double check that? I know how your math is.
You can absolutely check my work on that one, but it is, I think it's 700 yards exactly that they have given up on the ground the last 2 weeks.
That's an impressive feat.
The solace for Purdue is Nebraska has not been particularly great on the ground this year. Only 4.1 yards per carry as a team, and obviously there's a little bit of sack adjustment from that, especially after last week when I think Raiola was -35 yards or 50 yards or something like that on the ground from sacks. But Clinton, damn it didn't play.
Lock of the week.
Nebraska -7. I am fading Purdue until they show me that they can stop the run.
You know what surprises me, and maybe you can explain this to me. So before you sent me the text with the lines later this evening, I was just floating around looking at ESPN's, and ESPN has Purdue as a -10. So where is our lines from DraftKings again?
No, did I say that incorrectly? Did I send that to you wrong? What are you where did you see this?
I had ESPN bet today was -10 Nebraska.
It's -10 Nebraska.
You just said -7.
No, it's -10. I'm stupid. Sorry.
I was like, you've got me completely lost. Like,
If
how
only.
do you get a 3-point discrepancy?
No, it's
My
-10.
God.
It's -10. It's
I could see like a half a point, but that's a whole score there.
I literally wrote down -10 here. I'm just
He's got the COVID.
I got the COVID, not COVID brain. I mean, Purdue stinks, man. Like, I've watched more Purdue this year than any non-Purdue fan should have watched, and oh my God, I'm going to watch a whole other game here in a couple of weeks when we go there. But they don't tackle. Their scheme is weird. They play a ton of man coverage, so they're really gettable if you get past that defensive line. I think Dante Dowdell is going to have himself a little career game here.
Can the Huskers not have a letdown game after the disappointing home loss to Illinois? If the team carries the vibe that the fan base carried, or a lot of the fan base, then Purdue's going to have a shot in this game. You have to bounce back. Who is it? Who said this? Sang the song last night? Took an L, but tonight I bounce back. That's got to be Nebraska. Does the D-line get back after it this week? After what we expected they might do last week against Illinois. Props to the Illinois offensive line again. Stifled the pass rush. I lost my voice. Raiola to Nair connection keep growing? I think so. Mm-hmm. That seems to be his favorite target. Mm-hmm. You may not get game high rushing for Nebraska, as they might just hit you over the top the whole time. Purdue did lose to Oregon State, as we saw. But on the flip side, they also ran for 263 yards and averaged 8.8 yards per carry. That's the second time this season they ran for over 200 yards. The problem is, if Nebraska puts you down 17-0 early, that run game is going to go right out the window because they kind of hung. Oregon State never really fully put them away. You kind of hovered in there, so you could run the ball. You're going to have to stay in the game for that to be effective with Maccabee. In order for Purdue to win, they have to establish the run game, and they've got to control the clock and maintain drives. If you fizzle out, Nebraska's going to hit you, and you're toast. Look for Raiola to bounce back after a tough finish to last week. Nebraska -10.
We agree. Finally got one.
One for 4?
1 for 4. Well, 1 for 5, technically. Hold on. I'm going to sneeze. Okay, thank you. Bless you. Thank you. 3:30 also on the Peacock. We have Notre Dame, a 7-point favorite over Louisville. This line has been all over the place, Clinton. I don't remember if it opened at 4.5 for Notre Dame or if it opened at 6.5, but it was at 4.5 at one point. It's gotten bet up to 7. We've talked a lot on this show about, I've talked a lot on the show about the stinky line. This line doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how anyone on planet Earth could be even remotely confident in this Notre Dame team to cover a 7-point spread against anyone, let alone a ranked Power 5, Power 4 team. So because of that, I'm taking Notre Dame -7.
Oh my gosh.
Listen,
when the odds are stacked against you, go the other way.
Listen. If I've learned anything by paying attention to these things is if something doesn't make sense, there's a reason for that. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to trust the people who evidently know more than I do. So this is a weird spot, I think, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in this game. So the Colin Lacey, who was one of Louisville's big transfer receivers from the offseason, was expected to be their number one guy. He broke his collarbone in the preseason. He has been talked about as potentially returning this week. He's listed as a game time decision. I don't know if he would play. That'd be kind of on the short, just under the 6 to 8 week mark that they set off for him. But they're being kind of coy with that. Ja'Cory Brooks has stepped in and has actually been really good for them this year. And then I don't remember their cornerback safety's name, but he had an interception against Notre Dame last year. He's one of their better defensive backs. He got dinged up last week, and it sounds like he's also questionable for the game. So potentially a couple big losses there I guess Colin Lacey wouldn't be a loss because he hasn't played yet, but some big injury news on the Louisville front. On the Notre Dame front, It sounds like defensive end Josh Burnham is still questionable with an ankle injury. They desperately need him back to supplement that edge position that has been hit hard by injuries. There was some internet rumors that starting cornerback Christian Gray might be out for this game, but it sounds like he's going to play. So that would have been a pretty big loss, particularly against the best passing offense Notre Dame would have played this year. I don't know what to make of Louisville because they played literally no one the first 2 weeks. So I was looking, we had ESPN on at work, and they were like, they were talking this game, and they were talking about Louisville's defensive and offensive efficiency metrics so far, and they're like top 10 at both. And well, that's what happens when you play two garbage ass teams to begin the season. And they struggled a little bit against Georgia Tech last week. They needed a block field goal return for a touchdown to put that one away. They could not run the ball against Georgia Tech. So if you can't run the ball against Georgia Tech, are you going to be able to run against Notre Dame? I mean, maybe. Northern Illinois did it. I think the thing that scares me about this game, Clinton, is from a scheme standpoint, Jeff Brom is the guy who could figure out a way to solve this Notre Dame defense. And I still don't really have a whole lot of faith in Riley Leonard, even though he looked maybe kind of a little bit better in the second half last week after an absolutely putrid start to that game. But I'm not going with my gut. I'm going against my gut with what the Vegas line is telling me to do, because there's no earthly reason this game should be a 7-point spread unless somebody much smarter than myself is telling me it should be. So that's where I'm going.
Here's a simple way for Louisville to win the game. Stack the box and make Riley Leonard throw.
Yeah.
Don't turn the ball over, obviously. You have to score.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Make Riley Leonard throw to beat you. It's a simple ingredient. Jeff Brom, as you just mentioned, is going to be all over that. You can absolutely bet your ass on that. How many times have we seen Jeff Brom at Purdue, maybe not upset someone, but give them fits, right? Tyler Shuck has been pretty good so far. He's still healthy. I think that's the big surprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
For Louisville, he's healthy. Hopefully he stays healthy for this game. Can the Louisville offense, though, throw against the Notre Dame DBs? You pointed that out last time, how the Notre Dame DBs are grading, both corners and safeties. Here's a few fun stats. Total offense. Notre Dame, 55th in the country. Louisville, 14th. Yards per play. Notre Dame, 45th in the country. Louisville, 4th. Scoring offense. Notre Dame, 48th.
Wait, they're
Louisville,
48th?
48th. Louisville, 12th. Third
boy.
down conversion percent. These three stats here are what you and I talked about, Ryan. We wanted to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Third down conversion percent. Notre Dame is 78th in the country.
It's not good.
38.6%. Louisville's 34th. 47%. Fourth down conversions. Now this, you don't go for it on fourth that much, but Notre Dame is 75th in the country. Louisville is first. They are 100% on fourth downs. The most important one, though, that might come down to is red zone percent. Notre Dame is 51st. Louisville is actually 74th.
Yeah, Notre Dame's red zone defense has been incredible this year.
So, well, that's their red zone offense.
Well,
It's not the red zone defense. But,
right.
I kind of skipped out on the defensive part because I wanted to look more at the offenses to see how they compare, because we know Notre Dame's defense is elite. I think Louisville's defense is pretty stout. Ryan, have that sound ready. This is my lock of the week. Give me Louisville plus the points.
Oh my gosh, Clint, you are going to regret this.
Lock of the week.
Okay.
You were gonna
Cardinals
on this.
shock the Irish.
So here's something that is also fascinating in this. Against Jacksonville State a couple weeks ago, Louisville gave up 100 yards rushing to their quarterback. Last week against Haynes King, he ran for almost 60 yards.
Okay.
If you're looking for a bet, you can get Riley Leonard over 100 rushing yards, like plus 430 on DraftKings.
Here's my one piece.
He's going to run for 100
piece.
yards.
Maybe he does. Maybe Notre Dame plays a game like they did against Northern Illinois. Just saying. I feel like I've tried to stay high on Notre Dame, but I think Notre Dame wins. Mind you,
Notre Dame is
losing.
They are very opponent. They are very opponent dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Louisville is good. Northern Illinois is not. Louisville beat Notre Dame last year. They're going to be fuming pissed in this game and come out with their hair on fire.
I'll believe it when I see it.
The issue is if Louisville scores early and forces Notre Dame to have to throw to come back into the game, they're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't.
I think part of this in me, again, Notre Dame's going to win, but Louisville covers, is the Jeff Brom factor. That's the difference. At this point, I think he's a better coach than Marcus Freeman.
Oh, I mean, that's unquestionable.
And I think he's going to out-coach him in this game to keep Louisville close. They're not going to win. Riley Leonard probably does something with his legs late in the game that gets Notre Dame over the hump. But I'm locking it up. Louisville +7.
27-14 Irish. You heard it here first. Heard it here first.
Better hope Riley Leonard's all junked up on Mountain Dew. Jacked up on Mountain Dew.
Also at 3:30 on CBS, Wisconsin traveling out west to the Coliseum at USC. USC coming off last week's last-second devastating loss in the Big House, sitting at a 15.5-point favorite in this one. I think the only way that Wisconsin keeps this close is if USC has a massive letdown after last week, Glenn.
Wow. So you're going to go USC -15.5?
I'm going to go USC -15.5. They defended. I think it was kind of funny. Someone posted on Twitter a quote of Lincoln Riley. They were taught, like someone asked him like what he saw when he was looking back at the game film from defense last week. And he's like, well, I saw 47 run plays and 43 of them. I thought we defended them like ass beaters or something like that. And I'm like, he's not wrong, but when you give up 170 yards on the other 4 carries, you probably shouldn't say that. I don't know that Wisconsin has that same explosive capacity in the running game that USC had. Wisconsin has not shown an ability to score on anyone, which includes one MAC and one FCS team. Not that I'm going to sit here and say, wow, USC's defense played a fantastic game last week, and I think they're going to shut out Wisconsin. But I think their defense is probably better than Western Michigan and South Dakota's, who both did pretty well at containing Wisconsin. And that was with their starting quarterbacks. We got Braden Locke in this game. We have a USC that's like 85% of the time tackling better, and then the other 15% of the time being absolutely catastrophic about it still. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Alabama did a really good job of spreading out Wisconsin and creating matchups for their athletes in space. And again, not that I think of this USC offense in the same way that I do Alabama, but I think they can take advantage of matchups in a similar way. So maybe this isn't a 41-10 game again, but I mean, 31-10, 31-14 wouldn't surprise me. So I don't feel great about this pick. I think there's a chance that Wisconsin scores late to kind of backdoor cover this one, but I don't know that this is going to be a particularly competitive game. So give me Trojans -15.5.
How does USC rebound? Hard fought, physical game. You haven't had to do that before because you played in the Pac-12. You quite literally, I don't think, had to face a team that ran the ball 45 times. And you're going to come in and face what I think Wisconsin's going to do is lean on their run game, which is going to be Malusi and Walker to establish control of the line of scrimmage. Wisconsin is fresh. They come off a bye week. USC's still licking their wounds a little bit. I think Wisconsin's going to roll with more of the ground and pound in this game. Their defense has to be a little more opportunistic and force Moss into some turnovers. Wisconsin only has 6 sacks so far this year, 1 interception and 1 fumble recovery. I think given, as you mentioned, who they played, you would think those stats would be a little bit higher. But can USC's defense limit big plays? They did mostly well enough last game, right? Except for the 4 that lost them the game. I like Wisconsin +15.5.
We have picked one game the same this week. This is exciting.
This is Separation Saturday.
I guess so, or something like that. 7 o'clock, Clinton.
On the cock!
Ohio State traveling to East Lansing for the first time, playing an actual road game, albeit a team that may or may not have a pulse.
Well, I was going to say, you see this right here? Beep, 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 beep. That's a pulse. Michigan State has a pulse. It might be on the lifeline that it might be done, but they have a pulse.
Ohio State 23.5-point favorite against the Spartans in this one as Ohio State opens Big Ten play. I think this is a very good line, Clinton, because I have no idea what to do with it.
I know what to do with it.
I'm inclined to take Ohio State because I think Jim Knowles is going to do an exceptional job at confusing Aiden Childs, who has proven, if nothing else, through 4 weeks, that he is turnover prone. Mm-hmm. And I think that is going to create some short fields for the Ohio State offense. And I mean, this is unquestionably the best defense that that Childs and Michigan State's had to go against this year. So turnover prone quarterback against a very aggressive, physical, fast defense sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. I don't know that Ohio State beats the brakes off of them. I mean, I guess if you're winning by 24 points, that's technically beating the brakes off of someone. But again, kind of like with that USC-Wisconsin game, if Michigan State kind of got a garbage time touchdown to end up covering this one, it wouldn't surprise me. So I'm staying the hell away from this one with real money. But I guess give me Ohio State minus 23.5 here.
Michigan State allowed 152 yards and 2 TDs to BC in the rushing game last year, a rain-soaked game. What are they going to be able to do to limit both Henderson and Judkins? Henderson's averaging 8.6 yards per carry, Judkins 9.3. Judkins is also averaging over 100 yards per game. Aiden Childs, message directly to you. You cannot turn the ball over in this game. I'm talking even once. Multiple interceptions against this Ohio State defense, and you're going to have 0% chance to win. I'm expecting a 4 to 5 sack day from Ohio State, 2 from Jack Sawyer. Ohio State needs to show, though, that they can control the line of scrimmage. If there's one state, Michigan State's defense has been solid, especially in the trenches so far. They didn't do a great job controlling the line of scrimmage, that being Ohio State against Marshall early last week. I think that's going to come back to haunt Michigan State this week. I think Ohio State's looking at this as a flex game. They hear the comments. They haven't played anyone with a pulse. This is a different mentality from Ryan Day this year. I don't think they'll slow down until the fourth quarter. I think they're going to bury Michigan State. The other question is, do we know, is Nick Marsh playing, the other wide receiver playing in this game? Do we have any clue about that at all?
I haven't seen, but I can check on my fantasy team to see if he's still got that little red flag by his name.
Because honestly, I don't know how much it's going to help, but Marsh being in is certainly beneficial, right?
Will be a game time call for Saturday's game.
Okay. Well, my other question is then, I brought this up before. Do we see more Will Howard down the field passing in this game? Do we see more Will Howard use his legs in this game, given his comment that was in an interview this past week? And he said, you guys haven't even seen me use my legs yet in this offense. So we'll see what happens there. Ohio State minus 23.5. There, we agree on 2 of them.
To finish up the week, we have a little bit of Pac-12. Big Ten after dark. Oregon, 25.5-point favorite on the road at UCLA. 11 p.m. Eastern time on Fox, Clinton.
I will be in bed.
Dead asleep by this one. Good God, this is a late football game.
It's embarrassing.
Ay, caramba.
This is effing Big Ten country, not Pac-12 country. Come on.
Well, Clinton, there are no borders anymore when it comes to conference affiliation.
Well, I'm putting up a wall.
It's going
to be huge.
Build a wall just west of Lincoln and keep these West Coast schools out of here. I don't have any particular fantastic insights on this one. I am fading UCLA, though, until they prove otherwise, but they covered last week against LSU and ruined my lock of the week. So maybe this is a spite pick, but they could not run at all last week against an LSU defense that is not the best, I think we'll say. Oregon's defense a little bit better. And if your strength in the offense is your passing game, well, that's going right into Oregon's strength as a defense. Again, among the leaders in the nation in passes broken up, quarterback hurries. Could be a long day for Ethan Garbers. Pray for that young man. Might get his butt kicked in this one. I'm going to go Oregon minus everything. They're going to win this one big.
I think Dylan Gabriel's going to have the ability to dink and dunk his little heart out the entire game against UCLA's defense. I don't think there's going to be much that UCLA can do to stop Oregon's offense. If anywhere Garbers can get it going. I think you mentioned the pass defense as far as the DBs for Oregon, but their pass rush has been a little lackluster this year compared to, I think, what we thought it would be. So maybe if that's something there, if Garbers can have the time, maybe he can let them hang around for a half the way they did with LSU. I certainly think that's possible, given what we saw from Oregon previous to the Oregon State game. I just don't see any chance by the time this clock hits double zeros that UCLA is remotely close. Give me the Ducks minus, you said 25.5, I believe.
Minus 25.5.
Give me the Ducks. I'm sorry, Bruins. I might pick you this year. Do you play Purdue? If you play Purdue, I might pick you.
Don't know if they play Purdue.
We couldn't let this go. Oh, well, we still got to pick Georgia. I'm sorry. Never mind. Give me a 30-second bit here. Since this is becoming a partial LSU podcast, I just wanted to let you guys know, take South Alabama plus 22 against LSU.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
They might beat LSU. Definitely take the plus 22.
There's Clinton's free advice of the week if you want free money. Do you like
LSU will probably beat them by 50 now, and then I screw everyone. But I think that's a pretty comfortable pick. South Alabama's a fun team, man. Like, I didn't know I would be that interested in this Sun Belt team. I thought I'd be more interested in App State, but here I am, South Alabama.
App State sucking the life out of everyone.
They're going to get thumped by Liberty this week, too. That's another good 3:30 game. Like, my God, like, what is the fascination with putting crap in the middle of the day?
Yeah, no, put it in the beginning. I need a good morning slate when I'm actually home this week.
Liberty and App State at noon? So I can put that in my quad box? Come on, people.
Well, anyway.
All right, let's.
Bonus pick.
I thought we had breaking news there for a second.
Kick you in the back of the head.
The game of the century. We have number 2 Georgia at number 4 Alabama, 7:30 on ABC. Clinton, why don't you talk about your evening predicament? We all know my evening predicament is I'm not going to be able to watch any of these games.
Well, my other evening predicament starts off with my frustration, first of all, that Ohio State has to play a game on the cock. Second of all, I've got a game on the cock that I have to watch at 7 o'clock.
You were born in the dark. I was born in the darkness. You merely adopted it.
Then I have Illinois Penn State at 7:30, and then I have Georgia and Bama at 7:30. What is this shenanigans? I was happier thinking that Illinois Penn State might be a big noon kickoff.
Clinton, I believe that is what the kids call first world problems.
I know. So I got to figure out a way to log into the cock downstairs so that I can have Ohio State on one TV, I can have Georgia and Bama on the other, and I can have Penn State and Illinois on my other one, because I don't want to miss any second of any of these 3 games because they're too good. They're too juicy. You like your steaks juicy, right? I like my college football games juicy.
Anyway, the spread now on this one is down to Georgia -1. This is more or less a pick 'em here.
So you're giving me -1, or I was thinking I was getting -2.
No, I got minus. Yeah, bet ESPN as of this second has Georgia -1.
Okay. They are the SEC network home, so.
It's a pick 'em, Clinton.
Where are you going, Ryan? Where are you going?
I have no idea, man. I'm rolling with the dogs until someone dethrones them. Alabama dethroned them last year. I think this is a nice little revenge spot for Georgia. I'm not putting any stock in the Kentucky game because I'm sure they didn't give 2 flying shits playing that football game, and they'll be fired up, juiced up for this one to go in and get a nice little road dub. So give me the dogs.
Oh, man. I like Bama, and I like Bama at home. I like Kalen DeBoer. I know there's no Nick Saban, so Kirby Smart doesn't have to look across the field and see Saban anymore. I'm not sure about Carson Beck. I just don't know. There's no Brock Bowers. I want to see what he has to do against a better defense. I've heard Joel Klatt talk about how Bama's defense is gettable, and they really haven't been exposed yet. I guess USF got them for a little bit, but I think the key factor for me is that Bama has their O-line healthy, I believe. They have Proctor, and I'm blanking on the other guy's name. They're back. Look how much better they looked when those guys play. I'm not saying Wisconsin's a world beater, and they're not Georgia, but Jalen Monroe and his legs has such a dynamic ability to them. I mean, this game, like you said, is a pick 'em here. I'm taking Bama +1. Roll Tide.
Clinton, at the beginning of the season, Georgia beat Clemson so bad that everybody just checked out on Clemson and thought that they were cooked as a program. And all they have done since then is beat the living shit out of everyone else on their schedule.
They've beat the living shit out of shit, though.
Yeah, but
anybody.
Okay, but how bad were they last year? They didn't beat it. They lost to NC State last year.
Yeah. I think the counter to that is at the beginning of the season, everybody wrote off Alabama all because Nick Saban walked out the door, forgetting the fact that all the talent he accumulated there outside of Caleb Bounds is still there.
They were like 6 in the preseason AP poll. That's not writing anyone off.
I think a lot of people did. I
That's
think a lot of people
writing anyone off.
See, I think they rode Kalen DeBoer off. Is what I'm saying.
No.
So
no.
I think Jalen Milroe's the difference. Bama's winning this game.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
We're going to find out big time because, like I said, you're going to be buried after this week or you're going to have a 4-game lead on me because we're at odds on every game but 2.
Yeah. Listen, man. Dogs. Go Dogs.
Roll Tide. Pains me
Oh
to
my
say
gosh.
that, but Roll Tide.
Ay, caramba.
I wish you had a Sweet Home Alabama soundbite. That's what you have to do for me. If Bama wins this and I get this, you're playing me a Sweet Home Alabama soundbite Sunday.
That's not happening.
And I'll give you a Roll Tide roll.
And then we can clip that and we can send it to all your Ohio State fan friends, Clinton.
I know,
Look at
right?
who Clinton roots for.
I think at this point, Ohio State fans might hate Georgia more, given what's lingering from a few years ago. Last time Ohio State played, well, never mind. Last time Ohio State played Bama, they got massacred. Never mind. Forget that.
The SEC, it just means more.
Don't give me that BS.
Yeah, it's not Alabama's fault that Ryan Day tried to cover the Heisman Trophy winner with tough Borland.
Did Ryan Day try to do that? Ryan Day at that point was too busy sticking his nose in a play call card. That was ignoramus Kerry Coombs trying to put tough Borland on Devonta Smith.
I almost turned the game off at that point. I'm like, I've seen everything I need to see. These guys are not playing the same sport.
Regardless of who wins this game, I think the Georgia-Bama is going to be a great game. I really do. I think it's a 4-quarter game, similar to what I don't know if we're going to get points like this, but similar to remember when Burrow had to come in to Bama and beat them like that. I think it's going to be a game like that. And I think both these teams, I put them both in the playoff. I think you put both of them in the playoff, right?
Yep.
So people were talking about how they think this game's going to mean less because they can both get in the playoff with it. I disagree. There's still a lot on this game. This potentially is getting you a first-round bye and not maybe having to come north. And if Georgia loses this game, we've talked about Georgia's schedule a little bit. They have a stout schedule. You could lose 2 to 3 games. You still get in the playoff because you're Georgian from the SEC, but you could lose 2 to 3 games, which means you're going to have to come to Notre Dame as the 5 seed in bitter cold winter.
Clinton, if Notre Dame ends up as the 5 seed in this particular college football playoff, I will take this hat off of my head and eat it live on the show. That seems to be the thing on Twitter now, is saying you're going to do ridiculous things and
like lick and eat dog poop. I saw someone post. I'm like, something about shoving a burrito up their ass.
Some Kansas State fan said if they lost to BYU, he was going to shove a beefy 5-layer burrito up his ass. And guess what happened? They lost by 24 to BYU, 31 to BYU. I saw.
Is there a YouTube video out there somewhere?
I think he's doing it this weekend.
No, thank you.
You can put that on your quad box on Saturday night.
I'm good. Have fun in the ER, buddy.
I don't have a good poop sound. We'll finish with this one.
Well, I don't get the brain man cold.
That's kind of what this show was like.
That's
Lou Holtz in it.
That's kind of what my brain feels like right now. That is it. If you've made it to this point in the show, thank you for once again sticking with our nonsensities.
Absolutely. Illini Cast, special shout out to you. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you don't already, please give us a follow on Twitter or give us a follow on YouTube. We really appreciate it. And anyone else who tuned in, we appreciate you listening to the show tonight.
Again, you can find us in your podcast feed. Make sure you're subscribed on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your shows so you can get notified whenever we drop these. Drop that rating and star review would be much appreciated. And we will be back with you guys on Sunday night to recap the action of week 5. And hopefully I will not be an emotional mess during that game, Clinton.
Oh, what fun it could be. Oh, what fun.
I've had enough of it. For Clinton, I'm Ryan. We'll see you guys on Sunday.
See ya.